Welcome in its first video in English about unknown uprisings and forgotten fights. And today I'll talk to you about the Spartacist Uprising. And it was an uprising of the so-called Spartacist League. In German you would say the Spartacist Bund. And now you might think, oh whoa, Spartacus, wasn't that like that tall, jacked dude we know from Spartacus Blood and Sand? The guy who was a slave and fought for his freedom against the Roman Republic, and yes, that's true. However, the Spartacist League, the Spartacus Bund, was a German communist organization. And that organization started an uprising in January 1919 in Berlin. And you might ask yourself, well, alright, but why haven't I ever heard of that? Because the uprising failed. Before I get into it, I'll talk about two major developments that took place around that time. The first one was World War I. That was a war between Allied and Central powers, mainly took place in Europe. And in the year of 1917, Germany got an enemy less. The Russian Empire got out of the war. However, they also gained an enemy, the United States of America. The second development was the Russian Revolution. That took place in 1917. These were basically two revolutions. The first one was the February Revolution, and there were Social Democrats who came into an uprising, and they gained power, and the Tsar laid down his power. But in October of that year, the extreme left wing, the Bolsheviks, the communists, gained power. Back to Germany, because there was also a lot of unrest there. Why? You must understand that Germany suffered tremendously by World War I. There was no fighting on German soil. The West Front was mainly in Belgium and northern France. However, because of blockades, naval blockades, Germany was cut off food supplies. So therefore, famine struck in the country. Also understand that millions of German soldiers died at the front. So during extreme times, times of war, times of famine, extreme ideas develop. And we had left-wing extremists and right-wing extremists. The left-wing extremists were the communists. In this case, they were in an organization called the Spartacist Bund, the Spartacist League. What was their goal? They wanted to develop a Soviet republic inside Germany. What does that mean? That means that you had workers' councils, councils of workers, laborers, soldiers, farmers, and therefore the power would be with the ordinary people and not an elite, not a king or a Kaiser or an emperor. The right-wing extremists were Freikorps, and these were German soldiers who came back from the front line after the war was over, and they didn't hand in their weapons, and they were nationalists and conservatives, and they were willing to use violence and military suppression to gain power. In 1918, November, a revolution took place in Germany called the November Revolution, which was a revolution of social democrats. This revolution had three consequences. First of all, the armistice of 11th November 1918. World War I, after years of senseless fighting, finally came to an end. The second development was that the German emperor, the Kaiser, fled to the Netherlands. And the third one, there was a new social democrat government installed under the leadership of Friedrich Ebert. Now you might think, alright, war's over, Kaiser's gone, new government, and everybody's happy. No. January 1919, the Spartacists, they get outside, get their weapons, and they occupy different points in Berlin. There's a general strike, and with that they try to gain power. Now, the government of Friedrich Ebert had no power at all, because they had no army. But where were soldiers? Well, in these Freikorps. Now, they'll think that as a social democrat, Friedrich Ebert was a fan of these right-wing extremists, and vice versa. But who did the Freikorps members hate it more? So Friedrich Ebert contacts these Freikorps, they get into action and they suppress the uprising. And you must understand that the Berlin of January 1919, there are bloody street fights between left-wing and right-wing extremists. Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, who were the two leaders of this uprising, were arrested by the Freikorps and murdered afterwards. Along with them, hundreds of Spartacists who took part of the uprising. And therefore, the communist threat in Germany was repelled. But till in the late 20s, there would still occur political violence and murders between right-wing and left-wing extremists. Till the year of 1933, the right-wing extremists, under the flag of National Socialism, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, gained power. And you might not be surprised, but a lot of members of the SA and the SS were members of the Freikorps back then.